Welcome to the Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast with your hosts,
Jon Helmkamp,
Matthew Betz, and Matt Okada.
Jon Helmkamp, Matthew Betz, Matt Okada. We are back. It is Monday. Happy Monday to everyone driving to work. Maybe you are in the gym pumping some iron. Maybe you're out for a run. Maybe you're doing, I don't know, God knows what. I just hope you're not doing whatever Okada's doing. Some states. I just hope you're not doing whatever Okada's doing on the screen. And that leads me right into if you're not watching on YouTube, of course you're doing it wrong. Let's check in with the fellas on this fine Friday evening that we were recording this. If there's any news that breaks over the weekend, we apologize. It is not on the show. Boys, how are we?
Hot.
So hot.
Yeah. If we have any massive video lag outs and it seems like we're just not going to have video, I'm probably just going to take my shirt off for the rest of the episode because I'm not feeling it right now.
Don't do that. I'll have to hit the explicit button on YouTube when I publish
True.
The pants are off, folks. Yeah, what can I say? It's late June in Arizona. It's hot and my kids don't seem to enjoy sleeping and everything's going great.
You know what?
And therefore, you don't get to sleep.
True.
We
are almost halfway through 2020. Have you considered that? By the time
that is wild.
In fact, when you're listening to this, tomorrow is the last day of the first half of 2020.
Yes.
You know,
that's crazy.
That's good, right?
Hey,
and it hasn't been great.
No,
hasn't been great so far.
No.
Here's hoping to a better second half. Just like most games with the Seattle Seahawks.
Fair point. To be honest, 2020 can suck it. Honestly, it's so
straight
weird. God, we just need football. We need something to bring us happiness this time of year. Fortunately, we are here to do that for you guys. And I just want to give a quick shout out, man. Like our listeners, they have just been awesome this year. We have yet again set another record in terms of downloads on the show ever in its existence in June. So we love you guys. Thank you so much. We do appreciate all the reviews on Apple Podcasts, interacting with us on social media, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you so much. And speaking of Apple Podcasts, I just want to give a shout out to one of our listeners, also one of our patrons. This comes in from Reginald476 on Apple Podcasts. He left us a 5-star review. He said, "This podcast is one that I put above almost any others. With Betz and Okada having special takes, with Betz being a PT and Okada working at the NFL Network, the addition of Jon adds a bit more color and his own perspective because I believe in these guys. It's great to see them ask questions and just discuss what's ever going on. The Slack channel is pretty fantastic." Shout out to Russ. He is the man. We really do appreciate you. All right, boys, we're going to get over into the news. There is no news. We're going to get over into
moving on.
12 wide receiver rankings on the show. Hey, listeners, if you missed the top 12 running back ranks, we had that show 2 shows ago. Last episode was running backs the top 24, so 13 to 24. All sorts of good stuff in there. Of course, Jonathan Taylor. We talked about Miles Sanders' value, Clyde Edwards-Helaire's ceiling. All that good stuff is in there. But tonight, fellas, we're on to the pass catchers. It is wide receivers, and we're going to start with a man who, what is there to say? He catches like 600 footballs every year. He literally is a PPR monster. It is Michael Thomas, and he is an absolute stud. What is there to say? I don't know that we really need to discuss him and his upside. Clearly, we've seen it. Where would you rank him overall? I think that's the conversation. Where would you rank him overall in terms of the elite tier of running backs?
He comes right after the elite tier for me. So you've got CMC, Saquon, Zeke, Kamara, and Cook, if Cook is on contract. That's the elite 5. For me, after that, it's Michael Thomas.
I agree.
Especially in
PPR. I 100% agree. Yep. I think we've talked about this. Where do you want to draft from in redraft leagues? And I think everyone's so psyched about getting a top 5 or 4 pick because of those running backs. And I agree. I think I want that too. But if I get Michael Thomas at 5 or 6 as a consolation prize, air quotes, yeah, Gimme all day.
Yeah, Michael Thomas is he and Breeze just have a really, really pretty thing going. And if you're talking redraft, there's none of that concern about dynasty and what's going to happen after Breeze leaves. You're just looking at this year in a vacuum. And this year in a vacuum, they're going to be running it back. Like, it's same old thing, same song and dance. He's going to be the favorite target on the team. Yes, they have Emmanuel Sanders there, who should see fine wide receiver 2 numbers. He's not coming in to take away a large market share from Michael Thomas. Michael Thomas is going to do his thing. He's going to cook guys off the line of scrimmage. And Breeze is going to have so much fun targeting him like 7 yards downfield on every throw and get the ball into his hands. He's going to be a PPR monster again. When you're ranking players, you don't necessarily want like per se the number one guy. Like, you expect this guy to finish the number one, but when you look at the total range of outcomes, the amount of receptions that he's going to have, it's really hard to think that Michael Thomas's finishes any lower than wide receiver 3. Like that's he's in that elite window where someone else might sneak in there with more touchdowns. Something like that might end up taking place. But the floor to ceiling of him is like the best wide receiver in fantasy football and one of the top 3 wide receivers in fantasy football. And you love that kind of close window at the top of the chart.
Yes, agree 100%. 185 targets, the most in the NFL since 2015. Like, absolutely unreal. You can't really beat that volume.
Insane.
It's laughable, right? Like, it's crazy.
Yeah.
So obviously, no more analysis needed. Dude's a stud. Take him in the first round of your draft. Fellas, I don't have him ranked as number 1. And again, this isn't because I wouldn't draft him there necessarily. I have Davante Adams as my number 1. You guys have him at 2. And to me, John, you touched on it. It's all about touchdown upside. And what we saw with Davante Adams last year when he was on the field, obviously, I think it feels like he was a bust last year, quote unquote, because he had the turf toe injury. And of course, when he missed time, it was tough to trust him coming back. He missed 4 games. But in the games he played in terms of fantasy points per game, wide receiver 5. And part of those production was a game he left early and the games he came back where it kind of started slow. So top 5 wide receiver is the floor. I've got him at 1 because, we talked about it all offseason with this Packers team. Who is the wide receiver 2? We don't know. Davante Adams is going to absolutely dominate the red zone this year. Absolutely dominate. That's why I'm going at 1 versus 2. Obviously, you guys are in. You got him at 2 as well.
Actually, I have him lower than that. Okay.
You do. John actually has him at 3.
You updated it. You have him where at 3?
It is. It's updated. Yes. Hashtag refresh them rankings. Listen, Davante Adams.
Get that trending on Twitter, man.
Davante Adams, in my opinion,
Dem.
is the only receiver that can realistically unseat Michael Thomas, and I wouldn't be surprised. There are a few other guys that I'm like, I would not be surprised if they're top 3 receivers. That's great. But it's going to take big production either in the receptions and yards game or the touchdowns game or both. And Davante Adams has a good chance to challenge Michael Thomas in both those categories because of what you talked about with the lack of other weapons. He's going to get the targets and the receptions like he did 2 years ago when he had 169 targets and 111 receptions in 15 games. So those numbers would be higher in a full season. But the touchdowns is where it really kicks in because I don't think there's even too much of a debate that he's probably the highest touchdown upside receiver of this whole group in the entire NFL, really. Possibly the strongest lock for double digit and possibly the best chance at something crazy like 15 where you lock yourself into the wide receiver 1 territory based off your touchdown. So I can't judge it at all putting him at 2 or 1. It's fine either way.
Yeah. I love all of that. He's still in my top 3. I love Davante Adams a ton. He's phenomenal. We think he's got a great chance at leading the NFL in receiving touchdowns this year. I think that he probably has that high of an upside. I am just growing more and more concerned about this offense kind of as a whole. In terms of the Matt LaFleur effect and Okada rolling your eyes on me. What?
You've been listening when I talk.
Yes, I have been slightly. I still love it.
I have
still
not.
know
If that makes you feel any better.
No, I'm
doesn't.
not. I'm between the two of you. I'm not on Betz level of fade every Green Bay Packer ever, and I'm not on Okada saying
I've got Devontae at 1.
Aaron Rodgers
Except
is Aaron
Devontae.
Rodgers. Yeah, except
Exactly.
Devontae. So for me, I'm kind of in the middle. I still think that obviously he's going to command a ridiculous target share. Something north of like 27 to roughly 30% is absolutely possible in this offense. Those are like college wide receiver 1 target share numbers, not normally what you see in the NFL. So I think that could absolutely happen for him. I also see a reality where their total offense is lower than what we've seen in quite a while. And I don't know if he's going to have all the scoring opportunities that we're kind of used to him seeing. So to me, the touchdown volume is what gives him the biggest upside. And if the touchdown volume is slightly lower than we think, I don't know if he makes a run at the number 1 spot in fantasy football. I still think he's elite. He's absolutely fantastic. He's going to get a ton of targets. And, I think that he's pretty much a lock to be a top 5 fantasy wide receiver. But I still think it's Michael Thomas's crown right now.
Yeah, I will say too, in terms of the touchdown department, that's the only way this happens, right? And we've been talking a lot about Aaron Jones and the regression that is inevitably coming. If this offense, I'm not projecting them to be like that good, but if this offense stays the way they were last year, and you just say, okay, who's most likely to benefit from Aaron Jones' regression? It's Aaron Rodgers throwing to Devontae Adams with a back shoulder fade and doing the Lambeau leap. Like that's what we're going to see a lot this year. So love him. Like we said, wide receiver 3. Now I feel like this is probably not the most common thing you'll see in the industry. John has Mr. Tyreek Hill at 2 above Devontae Adams. Okada and I are at 4, so we're right there with you, just a little bit lower. John, I'm going to kick it back to you. Why Tyreek over Devontae?
Yeah, I think that Tyreek Hill has proven. Now, listen, he was banged up last year, had multiple injuries, which slowed him down a little bit. But when he was on the field, he was still just doing Tyreek Hill things, which is get the ball into his hands in any way, and he's a threat to house it on every throw. Like there were so many circumstances where you look at him and there's 2 safeties over the top that are kind of broken down and have him like boxed into a little hole. And you're like, all right, on any other wide receiver in the NFL, the play's done right here. Like it was a great throw. It was 20 yards down the field. It's fantastic. Good pickup. Great. But he's the rare talent where it's not done when the ball gets into his hands. Like on every play, he has a chance to burst away from whatever defender is close and house it. I mean, he did that several times. I think he even did it in the Super Bowl, if I remember right, against San Francisco on that kind of weird throw down the left side. He still made a guy miss. Yeah, he still made a guy miss where it looked like that play was already fantastic for Pat Mahomes to avoid a sack and get it across his body to the other side of the field. And Tyreek Hill's down there wide open because he's so freaking fast. Still made another guy miss where normally that play ends. For me, that kind of rare ability to create, there's not a lot of wide receivers that we've seen that possess that. And he's turning into an incredibly well-rounded wide receiver, not just a speed guy. He is turning into a very physical wide receiver. He wins contested catches. He can jump incredibly well. His ability in space is unparalleled in the NFL right now. So the complete package that he is with this offense, in my opinion, taking a step forward from where they were last year, which was already elite, but closer to what we saw Pat Mahomes 2 years ago, because we had a Pat Mahomes injury last year. We had a Tyreek Hill injury last year. Everyone's coming back healthy. You add CEH into the mix, which we talked about in our last podcast. It's, as our good friend Debro would say, it's wheels up on this offense. Everything is looking great for them to be the number 1 offensive fantasy football. And I want the number 1 wide receiver on the number 1 offense with the number 1 quarterback. He's a stud. I think that he is one of only 2 other wide receivers that could challenge Michael Thomas for the number 1 spot.
Alrighty. I like the I don't say bold take, but I like the confidence in telling listeners like, hey, this guy deserves to be considered in that tier. I don't know that. Like, sure. I think for me, it's personally, this is what I see: Devontae and Michael Thomas in a tier. Thomas. I see Tyreek Hill right behind them, but there's a little bit of concern for me with just we've seen the disappearing acts before. We've seen him come in and dominate for weeks in a row. Last year, wide receiver 3, wide receiver 12, 27, 4-3 over a 5-week stretch. Then 49, 39, 9, 37, 41. That's what Tyreek Hill has been throughout his career. Now, the week winning upside is there. Any given week, like you said, takes the ball, houses it for 90 yards, and you're doing cartwheels in your living room. That's why I have him a little bit lower, is just some of the consistency concerns. But would I draft Tyreek Hill on a roster? Hell yeah, I would. I want to pair him in some drafts, like in best ball drafts I've done. Like sometimes you can get Julio and Tyreek on the same roster, Devontae Adams and Tyreek. I mean, your wide receiver room is loaded. Okada, any thoughts
back
there?
Of the first,
regards those. Back of the first, yep.
I mean, I don't hate it at all. I have him at 4, so certainly, nothing insane here. And let's be fair, he was the wide receiver 1 2 years ago. So it's clearly there. I will say, especially coming from you two CEH maniacs, the targets are not necessarily there the way that they were 2 years ago. Because this team went out and got Mecole Hardman. Was Sammy Watkins there 2 years ago? I don't think he was.
He was in LA.
Injured a lot? He was still in LA.
No, last year wasn't his first year there. He was there. He's been there for 2 years.
But he was in and out, I think, all year. And not really involved.
Was he a mid-season trade? I can't remember.
Possibly. In any case,
I'm gonna look that up.
We shall. Yeah, go look it up. I don't think so.
But they've those two guys are now have prominent roles or more prominent roles. Mecole certainly could take another step forward. And now you're adding Mr. Supposed 61.5 catches CEH. I don't think it's that, but
he's not going to catch a half. It's going to be 62.
Okay.
Sure.
I still think, even though I take the under on that he'll have probably 40 plus. So, and that's a lot from a new running back. And you also have Damian Williams who can catch the ball out of the backfield. And then, of course, we're not even mentioning Travis Kelce, who's still peak. So I don't know if he's going to have the target share, which, to be fair, he can make more out of a low target share than just about anyone. But 2 years ago, when he did finish as a number 1 wide receiver, he had 137, I want to say, targets. And I don't see him reaching, 137, 87 catches. I don't really see him reaching that anymore, given the additions of talent around him.
How many receptions did you say? 87 on 137 targets? So in my opinion, he's gotten better as a wide receiver. I think his catch percentage has been higher than that what we saw 2 years ago.
It was 2% higher last year than it was 2 years ago.
On an injured season. So if you do this year compared to that, I think there's absolutely a chance that he's 5% higher than he was at a catch percentage 2 years ago.
No chance. No.
I think
no chance.
No, he's got to that would make him one of the highest catch percentage receivers in the league. That's not who he is. He can hover around 67 maybe %, but
yeah, and that also comes to the targets he gets, right? Like, yes, he is getting more of a shared distribution of targets, not from a target share, but like short routes, intermediate routes, deep balls. But he gets a lot of those big explosive pass receptions, and those just aren't as common to hit. So his reception total might not ever climb to
87.
Michael Thomas, Devontae Adams.
Oh, no way.
Like, so, it's good, but like you said, his yards per reception, his efficiency is really what makes up for it. At the end of the year, he's there in the ranks week to week. Maybe not. We'll see. Either way, love the dude. Draft him with confidence.
Well, Sammy did sign in the offseason, by the way. It was a March signing.
Yes, love him on the football field. Thank you, Okada.
You're welcome.
Wide receiver 4 is my wide receiver 3. He's Okada's 3. He's John's 5. Julio Jones. This man produces top 8 PPR finishes every single season. Fellas, we're talking about a player who's 31. We're talking about a player who some people out there are saying is declining because he had a reduction in his efficiency metrics last year. Stop talking. That is incorrect. Julio Jones is an absolute monster. He is not going to be overtaken. Yeah, he's not going to be overtaken by Calvin Ridley. Get out of here. I like Calvin Ridley as much as the next guy, but people putting those narratives out there are just wrong. Like Julio deserves to be a top 5 wide receiver until he's not.
The narrative that Calvin Ridley is the next Chris Godwin is just pissing me off to no end. Like,
we're going to talk about
all over
Godwin
the place
next,
on Twitter.
So hold on to that.
We are, but I'm the disrespect on my man Julio. Like, I don't get it. It drives me absolutely insane. He's a monster. I had a really tough time not ranking him at 4. 4 and 5 here was really kind of splitting hairs. But Julio Jones is the most talented wide receiver in the NFL for my money. Like, pure talent level, it's Julio. I love Julio. Julio deserves to be considered essentially a top 5, maybe top 8 if you want to lower the bar slightly, fantasy wide receiver year in and year out until he just isn't anymore. Like, I'm going to make him prove me wrong. I'm never going to try to go early on Julio because he could easily do this for another 3 seasons.
Yep.
So I'm riding Julio until I'm wrong by taking him early. That's how it's going to go for me.
Word.
Yeah, there's no discussion. Like,
good analysis, Okada. That was great.
I mean, it's freaking Julio Jones.
It's Julio freaking Jones. Exactly. We talked about the backfield a lot, right? With Todd Gurley on our last episode.
Mm-hmm.
There is a range of outcomes where things go absolutely horrifically for this run game. If Gurley can't hold up, if Ito Smith can't produce, which he can't produce, if Quadra Allison doesn't produce, he won't produce. If Brian Hill can't produce, he won't produce. So if it doesn't work for Gurley, I mean, Julio Jones is going to finish as the wide receiver 1. Like that, I think that's going to happen.
It could happen.
Passing, NFC South division, lots of shootouts. We talked about it a ton on the podcast. We don't need to hammer that home, but draft Julio, draft him with confidence. And by the way, he's going in the 2nd round of ADP. Like, to me, if I'm going running back at late 1, getting Julio at the turn is unreal. So draft the dude. Top 5 till he isn't. Next player on the list, like John brought up in the consensus ranks, is Chris Godwin at 5 for myself and Okada, 4 for John. You don't see the Calvin Ridley comps, John, but do you still have full confidence in what we saw last year with Chris Godwin?
Yeah, I do. I understand that it's going to be a little bit different because there's no more Jameis Winston, where he put them into trouble every single game, and then they had to dig themselves out of it by throwing the ball. So I know that it's not going to be the same, but Chris Godwin is the wide receiver 1 on that team. Mike Evans said last offseason that Chris Godwin is the number 1 wide receiver on that team. He's the best wide receiver on that team at this point. Mike Evans is fantastic in his own right. I love Mike Evans for what he is. He's been an absolute stud in the league. What's it, like 5 straight 1,000-yard seasons, 6 straight 1,000-yard seasons that he's had, something like that. Phenomenal. 6. Like a great run to start a career. Absolutely great. But Chris Godwin is, in my opinion, a more diverse wide receiver than Mike Evans is. I really love what Chris Godwin brings to the table in terms of variety. I think that he is going to be Tom Brady's best friend, and I think that he's going to get peppered with targets. Mike Evans might see more of kind of the boom bust targets, in my opinion. Kind of what we were talking about with Tyreek Hill, some of the lower probability jump ball type plays. I could see that being more of Mike Evans' role. Mike Evans is going to have a very defined role. It's not just going to be those. He's going to get his target share. Like, don't misunderstand what I'm saying. But Chris Godwin, I think a majority of the time is going to be the number 1 read, especially on anything that's quick hitting in that offense to get the ball out. I think that his floor is higher than Mike Evans in that offense. I think that he's a bona fide stud and had proved it last year. He's very good at creating, very good after the catch. He's a beast. It was really tough for me right here between him and Julio, like incredibly tough.
Wow, that's saying a lot.
It is saying a lot because I love Julio Jones. I love Julio. But Chris Godwin, to me, he does have that youth aspect to him on just kind of an overall, the Bruce Arians scheme is really fantastic for wide receivers. It's great for wide receivers. We saw even an aging Larry Fitzgerald put up monster numbers in the Bruce Arians scheme. I expect Chris Godwin to do more of the same. I think that he will have more touchdowns than Julio Jones, which is going to help his case. But in my opinion, him and Julio are right there kind of neck and neck. If either one of them finishes higher, I'm not going to be disappointed or surprised. They're both very talented wide receivers.
I mean, here's the thing, guys. Chris Godwin finished as a wide receiver 2 last year in half PPR in only 14 games.
Yes.
He missed
True
2
that.
games. All the other top 7 guys played more games than him. And he did it on only 120 targets, which is not that many. Like, we're a little concerned about the loss of Winston and the loss of the interceptions turning into big deficits, and we think the Buccaneers are probably going to be better under Tom Brady.
Gold.
Yes, exactly. And so, the concern that should come out of that is, well, is Chris Godwin's target share targets number going to drop, and then therefore his fantasy is going to drop? I don't think it will. I will project him for more than 120 targets, most likely.
I think so. 140 range sounds totally realistic.
Yeah, 130, somewhere in there. Listen, he is extremely talented. Last year was year 3. It was his year 3 breakout. He's still only 24 and not in his prime. So
only 24.
There's a lot of ceiling still to be gained here for Chris Godwin. It is within the realm of possibility that he has a year this year that cements him as one of the best receivers in the league, and we go into next season debating whether he should be the wide receiver 1.
Absolutely.
Oh, that is spicy.
He
It's not wrong. It's not wrong.
He
I'm just saying, like, people, I don't think the general public is thinking that way. But I agree. I think that is definitely in the range of outcomes for Godwin. Like you said, man, only, what do you say, 14 games?
Yep.
86 catches. He's easy over 100 last year, right? And like that's a massive season. Obviously, he was a wide receiver 2 anyway. Obviously, the offense changing with Brady. We don't know exactly, but like you said, I'm betting on talent. I'm betting on him being the go-to guy in terms of targets. And Bruce Arians loves the dude as well. And we talked about it with Julio. Like, if things don't go right in the running game, like, we like Keyshawn Vaughn, don't get me wrong, but Ronald Jones, we're not the biggest fans of. And there's a range of outcomes where, like Tom Brady did last year, just had to chuck it over 600 times. So maybe it's not as big of a drop-off as we think. All right, guys, next receiver here in the ranks, DeAndre Hopkins. Guys, if he was on the Texans, he'd be in the top 2. Can we agree on that? Probably top 3 at least.
Top 3 at least, yes.
Top 3.
3. Yep.
But we have him dropped all the way down at 6.
Oh,
fading
terrible.
him everywhere. No,
Dude,
we are dropping him down to 6, and that's across the board, all 3 of us. So,
That's interesting.
what is there to say? Like, the talent is undeniable. Obviously, he's with Kyler now in I think a better scheme as far as getting more production from the entire offense. But he and Deshaun Watson were just so locked in. He was the first, second, and third read in Houston. And now he's going to a quarterback who spreads the ball out to his weapons. He's got Christian Kirk, who we still like. He's got a good pass catching back in Kenyon Drake. And I think that's why I've got him at 6. But if you're telling me I end up with like 2 of these dudes, like Julio and DeAndre Hopkins as my wide receiver 1 and 2, and I go wide receiver, yes, give me that. I will do that. Fellas, anything more to add to DeAndre Hopkins here? Is there anything that we are missing in terms of things to consider when discussing his rank, maybe putting him a little bit lower, or maybe we're too low on him? What do you think?
I mean, I think that the major question mark in the industry and for fantasy drafters is we're finally seeing him go away from a system that he's been a part of for a long time, with a quarterback for the last few years who has loved targeting him.
Loved him.
And to a scheme now, which, while good as an offense, is a bit more spread it out, give it to different guys sort of scheme. Is there a chance that, Hopkins loses targets and therefore loses value? I think yes, technically is the answer to the question, which is why we have him at 6. But I think that people need to not overreact and be like, oh my gosh, he's going to have 110, 120 targets now and be bad or drop out of wide receiver 1 range. This is one of the teams I have done my projections on because I was super curious about the Cardinals and how this all will go. And I still have him slotted for 149 targets. And the fantasy points that comes out of the stats that I gave him was wide receiver 6 last year. So this is exactly where I think he should be. I think it is. He's not going to be the 180 target, 15 touchdown guy that he would be in Houston. but he's still going to be very, very, very solid, reliable, and have enough upside to be a top end wide receiver 1.
So here's the thing about DeAndre Hopkins for me. I think that him and Kyler could absolutely have that chemistry that he and Deshaun Watson had, where Kyler knows I've got probably one of the top 2 set of hands in the entire NFL. It's like him and Julio for me. Rank them in either order that you want, but those two are in a tier to themselves in terms of hands. I've got one of the top 2 set of hands in the entire NFL on the outside. When things break down, if I don't necessarily feel like going and getting creamed by a linebacker running 8 yards down the field, maybe I should just throw it to Hopkins in some capacity and trust that he's going to catch the football, because that's what he does, and that's what he's always done. I think they'll get there. Dynasty, that's kind of the thought. Redraft, here's my issue. He could absolutely have 149 targets and slot in right there at the wide receiver 6. He could also be going to a new quarterback or a new offense with a young quarterback in an off season where we're dealing with COVID, and we're not really sure when these two are going to get on the field at the same time.
Oh God, you just look absolutely shook right now. I don't know why. I'm sorry. Just staring at the screen like, did you say something negative about Kyler?
No, I love Kyler Murray, but it's a second year quarterback dealing with an offseason like we've never seen in the NFL. Everyone thought that Odell Beckham Jr. was going to come over to Baker Mayfield last year, and it was going to be fantasy gold, and he was a top 3 fantasy wide receiver. That didn't pan out. There's a realistic possibility, and I don't want to say it because I love DeAndre Hopkins and I love Kyler, but there's a realistic possibility that these two struggled to get on the same page early because of COVID in this offseason. We already don't like wide receivers that change teams. Now you're adding in this whole offseason weirdness, and there's a possibility that DeAndre Hopkins could be a major disappointment in 2020. There's a realm of possibility where he's outside the top 16. That could happen. I don't necessarily think it will. I'm not going to put my money on that because talent for him, talent for Kyler, pass-friendly scheme. I'm kind of hoping for the best a little bit here with my rankings. He might move down a little bit further in mine because of my concerns about this offseason as a whole, but there's definitely a realistic possibility that he is this year's OBJ from last year.
It's interesting. I think that's a great comp as far as the hype that was there and the drafting of both players, but
it's a great comp for the direction that this could go.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
A bad direction, but the distance I don't think could be the same. I think the players are all better and the coaches better.
For sure.
Well, I don't, and I'm not saying that he's going to be a wide receiver 28 or whatever OBJ finished as last season, but like I said, outside the top 16, I could see it happening. That wouldn't really surprise me all that much.
Ouch.
Do you guys want to know an absolutely ridiculous stat about DeAndre Hopkins?
I do.
Sure.
He had 150 targets last year.
Mm-hmm.
That has been the lowest he's had in the past 5 seasons. Unreal.
He had 172 or something like
that. The volume 2 years ago was unreal. Yeah.
I also believe, if I'm not mistaken, that he did not have a single drop, according to PFF, which had never been done on that amount of targets.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think he hands down has the best hands. I don't think it's even close. I think Julio is a more dominant receiver all around, but if just pure hands, I give it to Hopkins. Yeah, he's insane.
Oh my God. Hey, that's another YouTube one there. You got, if you're not on YouTube for that, you are doing that wrong for sure. Also on YouTube, you're going to see on the screen the name of the sponsor of today's show. That is the Fantasy Footballer's Ultimate Draft Kit, the best draft kit in the industry. Listen, guys, you're going to buy it anyway. If you use our link, you're going to save 10%. It's redshirtsudk.com. You have to enter the code redshirts at checkout to get 10% off. Here's what you're going to get for an absolute steal. Rankings, consistency charts, my injury profiles, Matt Harmon's reception perceptions, breakouts, busts, sleepers, ADP, literally everything you need is in there. So go check it out, man. Ultimate Draft Kit is the place to get that. redshirtsudk.com. You guys
Okada's over here looking like a cartoon villain for some reason. Just I don't know what's happening right now. Why do I look?
I was looking down at the ticker. It's below me.
Oh my god, you guys just ruined that read like no other.
Scooby-Doo
what do
villain.
you-
I'm not sure what happened.
For the record, we made no noise. We just looked like idiots.
No, I know, but if you're watching on YouTube, then you know. Please, listeners, buy the draft kit. Use our code so we can make a little bit of money so I can hire 2 new podcast hosts. All right. On to the next wide receiver. Fellas, I am so excited to talk about this player. John and I are just high-fiving. So excited. DJ Moore, wide receiver 7 in our ranks, our consensus rank as well. Okada's got him at 9, so we are right there. Slap the hand for the high five on YouTube. But guys, DJ Moore is a stud. He is an up-and-coming, I think, star. I think we could see people are talking about Calvin Ridley. Like, I think DJ Moore could be the Chris Godwin this year. Like, I would easily 10 out of 10 times take DJ Moore over Calvin Ridley in a draft.
I would do it 11 out of 10 times. So
would I. And he's going in the 4th round. If you go RB in your draft, DJ Moore in round 4, circle it in green, highlight it in yellow, whatever you got to do. Do not miss his name.
Just take him in the 3rd. Like,
that's
don't wait until the 4th. Just go reach for him in the go take him in the 3rd, a round ahead of his ADP, so the rest of your league mates are sleeping.
Yep. I mean, we talked about it with this team, guys, too. Like, defense is going to be horrible. Teddy Bridgewater is going to be able to deliver the ball to him better than the general consensus thinks. We know that the advanced analytics show Teddy is better when he throws quickly. Oh, and by the way, this offense is going to run quickly. So I think, hands down, DJ Moore is a steal in fantasy drafts. Wide receiver 7 for John and I. John, what is your rationale there?
Question for the two of you, actually. I was raising my hand like a child in high school. Hit me. More targets in 2020. Mm-hmm. Chris Godwin or DJ Moore?
Oh, let me pull up the projections.
That is a toughie. I will go. That would be on our Patreon.
That's right. Patreon.com/FreshmanPod.
That's right.
That's just one of the things you get on there, by the way. Just pointing that out. I think I would probably go ahead and take Chris Godwin because I think Curtis Samuel is also good, and Christian McCaffrey is obviously Christian McCaffrey. In fact, DJ Moore is going to have more targets than Christian McCaffrey, but Christian McCaffrey might have more targets than Mike Evans, to be perfectly honest. And then when you go to the 3rd target for the Bucs, I think Curtis Samuel is probably better than that. I think it's actually a decent chance Ian Thomas gets more targets than Gronk too. I don't think Gronk's going to dominate in terms of targets, so I think there's a little bit more room there for Godwin, but it's close.
I agree. I've got Godwin. Yeah, I've got Godwin at 147. I've got DJ Moore at 138.
Okay, that feels decent.
So both high-end target share, target kind of wide receivers. That's what we're saying. Like everything's lining up for DJ Moore in this offense to have the targets, the ability, the game script positive for wide receivers for him to be locked in as a wide receiver 1. I feel like he's one of the younger wide receivers in the league that's kind of taking this like changing of the guard a little bit and stepping into the wide receiver 1 territory. Like Chris Godwin came in last year. It's DJ Moore this year's kind of step in. Tyreek Hill's already, planted his flag there firmly in that camp. DJ Moore is a bona fide stud. He's so good after the catch in this offense. It's going to be a little bit like Michael Thomas light, like not the same amount of targets that Michael Thomas gets because Michael Thomas was the entire offense other than Alvin Kamara, but same division, same theory, quarterback, get the ball to this guy and then let him do stuff with it. That's what they do with Michael Thomas. That's why Michael Thomas led or set a receiving record last year for the number of receptions in a single season. I'm not saying DJ Moore is going to break records, but it's going to be the same theory. Get the ball to DJ Moore. I don't care if it's behind the line of scrimmage or 2 yards past it. Just get it to him and then let him go to work. I feel like he's locked in there for a reception total in a PPR league. He's firmly, in my opinion, a wide receiver 1. Like, it's not even a question. the amount of targets that he's going to have is going to lead him there. In your standard or your half PPR, it's still there for him. He's going to be one of the best weapons on that offense in red zone opportunities as well. I feel like he's going to become Teddy Bridgewater's new best friend. And I feel like DJ Moore, young up-and-comer, takes that step into wide receiver 1 territory in 2020.
Love it. One thing I was just thinking of while you're talking, John, is there a possibility, and it's a low possibility, but is there a possibility that DJ Moore leads the NFL in receptions in 2020?
No.
Yes.
Not even
I'm glad I asked that question then.
There is no way that you lead the league in receptions when your running back is setting records in receptions. I'm sorry, it's not possible.
How many did CMC have last year?
117, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, which I could check.
Okay.
Check that.
How many has Alvin Kamara had for 3 years in a row?
81.
How much do we think he's going to get this year? We talked about him being over 90.
95.
Okay.
I made that up.
116. I was one off. 116 for McCaffrey.
Oh,
Good for you.
Dude, you research for a job.
What an
you
amateur. That's
nerd.
like, you got to know that number. Come on.
Come on, man.
That's got to be just off the cuff, just straight out.
Yep.
But in my opinion, yes, Christian McCaffrey is a bona fide stud in the receiving department. The amount of targets that Michael Thomas had last year is unsustainable. It was a record. It was a record-breaking year. I feel like the league leader in receptions this year is not going to have the number of receptions that Michael Thomas had last year. You can't expect that. If the league leader this year is going to need 100 and how many receptions did Michael Thomas have last year with the record?
149.
149.
Correct.
I feel like
get this
somewhere
one wrong too.
Please hold.
I know. Just get fired. Just lose your job.
Yeah, I will fire myself.
149. 149.
Yes, we're back,
back.
baby. Let's go.
We're back. Don't call it a comeback. The league leader in receptions this year could very well be in the low to mid 130 range, maybe even high 120s if Drew Brees is not uber efficient and targeting him at a record-breaking pace, whatever it's going to be. I feel like there is a realm of possibility. Like, I'm not saying it's going to happen. That's not where I'm going to bet my money. But I feel like that offense is set up to get him the ball all the time. It's him and Christian McCaffrey and then a secondary role for Curtis Samuel. There is a realm of possibility.
Well, okay, hold
where
on.
He could absolutely get that.
Hold up.
This offense is meant to get Christian McCaffrey the ball. That is what this offense is meant to do. And then, oh, look, we also have a good receiver named DJ Moore. Let's get him a good amount of targets. But this offense is not meant to get DJ Moore the ball. We need to be very clear about that. Unless Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, no possible way.
All right. I'm glad I asked that question because I don't know the answer.
Do you have a
I was
guess?
hoping you to. I mean, obviously the answer is no. It's probably not going to happen.
No.
I'm
But
gonna say it's
you
probably
asked,
not.
is it in the realm of possibility?
It's in the realm of possibility.
Okay.
It's like a 4% chance, but like,
Yeah.
0.4.
it could
I'm not
happen.
saying it's likely. I'm not saying it's likely. Like, it's the same thing as me saying that I think that Baker Mayfield is going to be the quarterback one this year. Is it in the realm of possibility? Sure.
That's
I don't think
more
it's going to
possible,
happen.
in my opinion.
No.
Yep.
DJ Moore
Easily.
leading the league in receptions is
Easily.
way more possible. Way more possible than Baker being the quarterback one.
I like it. All right, boys. Speaking of Baker Mayfield, let's talk about his wide receiver. We think it's his wide receiver one. Some people don't. That's Odell Beckham Jr. What a man. You guys got to give me a raise, man, with those transitions.
I know. Fast.
Wide receiver 8 in the ranks. That's where Okada's got him. I've got him at 9. John is at 11. Fellas, what is there to say about Odell? The talent is unreal. The injury history is also real. And last year was a major issue with injury. You know, played through the sports hernia, which I've been saying a lot. I believe in the bounce back. I believe in that being a recovery that I feel really strongly about. It tends to have very good results after surgery. It's one that you won't hear me shy away from because the recovery isn't that long, and he's having now 9 months to get back. So I'm in on Odell Beckham from a health perspective this year. I think people are incorrectly identifying him as injury prone. Say what you want, but the dude is a stud in terms of talent. The only real question is, can he mesh with Baker in a new offense? New offensive system, I should say, not a new offense.
Yeah, that is a fair question. And I think that to John's earlier point of how badly it went for them last year, I'm going to continue to put the blame on Freddie Kitchens until I see another coach fail. Which,
Yes.
let's be fair, it's Cleveland, so there's a very good chance that every coach here is going to fail. But I'm giving Kevin Stefanski the benefit of the doubt. He has helped, or he's been a part of, certainly, and has recently coordinated two of the better receivers in the National Football League, in Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, both of whom have had crazy good production over different stretches of different seasons. And neither of them is as talented as Odell Beckham Jr., and that's saying a lot because they're both very talented. This guy, I mean, listen, if he plays 16 games, he has every ability to be the best wide receiver in the National Football League, not just for fantasy, in real life. There is no question in my mind that he can be better than Michael Thomas, better than Devontae Adams, better than Julio Jones. He is a freak of a talent. But we have not been able to see that come to fruition for a number of years now because of the injuries and because of the mess that was Cleveland last year. So I'm going to bet on the talent this year. I do not blame you, people, if you don't. Because there's a lot going against him. Like, Betz started off with, what is there to say about Odell Beckham Jr.? There's a heck of a lot to say about Odell Beckham Jr.
Tune into the next episode, talking about Odell Beckham Jr. for an hour.
Every aspect of what do I need to consider when it comes to ranking a receiver is a big deal with Odell Beckham Jr. The talent is massive. The quarterback is a conundrum. The coach and the system is interesting. The talent around him is very interesting. Is it, does Jarvis Landry make it easier for Odell to thrive compared to the secondary receivers he had in New York? Or is he Jarvis and he's going to get 140 targets and make Odell never be the guy he was supposed to be? There's so many interesting and difficult questions to answer that if you rank him outside your top 12, I will not judge you. And if you rank him at 8, where I have him, which is the highest of any of us, I do not judge you. And I think that there is a huge ceiling and a huge floor. He's really hard to predict. I'm buying in, but if you don't want to draft him, if you don't feel safe about it, don't do it. And that's fine.
Of any of the receivers that we've talked about so far, this is the point where we start getting to the place in the rankings where the floor gets low, potentially.
Big low.
Yes.
Big low. Like, it could be big low. I agree with you that he is a prodigal talent. Absolutely. OBJ is a stud. Came out, set the world on fire with his one-handed sideline pass interference catch against Dallas on Monday Night Football. Chris Collinsworth, or was it Monday night or Sunday night? It was Sunday, right? Because it was Chris Collinsworth. It was Collinsworth. It was in the booth, so it was Sunday. So Sunday Night Football makes that catch. Chris Collinsworth is just like losing his mind in the booth about the catch that happened. And all of a sudden, OBJ has arrived. And he's a superstar, and he is a thing. And then we go on all these weird tangents about him proposing to kicking nets and all this just random stuff with his time in New York. They ship him off for a pick, and Olivier Vernon was the trade. And it was weird, and it didn't work for New York, and I don't know really why they did it. You're going to bring in a young quarterback anyways. Why not keep your superstar wide receiver? I digress. So the possibilities are very, very high for OBJ in this offense in Cleveland. Stefanski runs a ton of play action. OBJ is very good when he gets man-to-man coverage, which play action is very good at creating. Baker is very, very good on play action passes. So that marriage could be really good. Last year, before the season, when OBJ came to Cleveland, I wrote a piece over on another website about how
dare you?
How dare I? I know. About how good Baker Mayfield was in his rookie season on deep throws. He was very, very good in his rookie season. OBJ has statistically always been very, very good on that. So I thought that marriage would go very well. Now you pair that with the play action offense based off of Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, and there's potential for that to be great. My concern, the reason why I have him the lowest is because I don't know that he gets the target total required for him to be a mid-range wide receiver one. He's incredibly talented, and we've seen Adam Thielen be a back-end wide receiver one, and Stephon Diggs kind of flirt with those numbers as well, high-end wide receiver two. I'm not sure that the target share is there with kind of the ascension that we're seeing from some other wide receivers in the league, like a DJ Moore that I just put above Odell Beckham Jr., which last year, if you asked me, that sounds absolutely mental. But here we are. So, facts. So that's kind of where we're at this point. I'm not sure that he's going to get the target total to lead him into that high end or mid-range wide receiver 1 status.
Yeah, buddy. Okay. Amari Cooper comes in at 9. Listen, this is my fault. I've got him at 10. Okada's at 17. Jon's at 15. So you guys are in cahoots on this one. And I can't say that I honestly disagree. But I am ranking these players where I think they will be finishing. You can ask me any draft questions you want, and I will tell you, don't draft Amari Cooper. I do not want him on my roster. He is in at 10. I've got him there because I think the fantasy points get him there by the end of the season, but the inconsistency is just a disappearing act. I don't want him on my roster, and I'm going to update my rankings after this because I can't put him at 10 and say that. But I think he will still be a top 12, maybe, probably wide receiver.
Maybe, probably.
The
conviction is real.
Gross. I just feel gross about Amari Cooper, and I don't want him on my roster. That's all I got to say.
Yeah, I mean, listen, here's kind of how I look at it. There's a little bit of ranking for what we expect the season to finish at and ranking for what we want drafters to draft by. For me, I'm probably going to rank for what drafters want to draft by until the day before rankings lock in for Fantasy Pros competitions, and then I'll switch to the end. But I do not want to draft Amari Cooper. I'm not going to ever get him. Like, you name a player, any player, and it's probably going to be, I would rather draft that player or more likely to draft that player at their ADP. At their ADP, yes. I would draft Laquan Treadwell at his ADP, whatever it is, over drafting Amari Cooper at his.
Hey, Betz, make a post on that for tomorrow, okay? I'd rather draft Laquan Treadwell than Amari Cooper.
I believe it's happening.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I mean, I've talked about Cooper quite a bit. I think there's a good chance that Gallup is better than him on his own team. So I'm not interested. I'm not drafting him anywhere. Stay away, people.
Yep.
He's inconsistent. I don't like him. There's too much talent around him, and he disappears. I don't want him next.
He's like a poor man's Tyreek Hill, but really poor.
I think it's a good comp. I think it's a great comp, actually.
Yeah.
All right, boys.
Tyreek doesn't do as much as Amari Cooper does.
No.
Yeah,
and not as hard.
On to 10. It is Juju Smith-Schuster. Now, I don't even have to look. I know that this is way higher than most shows, podcasts, whatever you want to look at. Okada's at 10. I'm at 8. Jon's at 12. Fellas, Juju Smith-Schuster, if you're comparing anything about Juju and you're mentioning anything from last year, I will immediately turn you off or just mute it or not listen to anything anyone's saying. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. Mason Rudolph and Duck Hodges were the quarterback. I mean, come on. Juju was injured with a knee sprain, which I'm not concerned about for this year, by the way.
Good.
Get out of here, guys. Like, that's not relevant. And when we saw him last on the field with Ben, he was a monster, an absolute monster. He's still so young, up and coming. The best is yet to come for Juju. And if you haven't bought him in Dynasty yet, it's going to be too late come season.
Get him now.
Like, now is the time if you want to buy him. Isn't he younger than DJ Moore?
Probably. He's younger than everybody. He's like 12 years old. Listen,
just graduated high school today, actually.
Also, consider this: everybody in the fantasy community is freaking out about Deontay Johnson, getting super excited and be like, "Oh my gosh, Deontay Johnson might just be better than Juju. He's probably just going to take over as a wide receiver 1 in Pittsburgh." First of all, no, get out of my face. Juju is a extremely talented receiver. Number 2,
I literally can't. Literally.
Everybody was so upset about Juju not being able to produce as a 1 because AB is lost. That means that if Deontay steps up to be a strong contender on the other side of the field, that's just going to help Juju. There is no way that he takes over and becomes the 1. Juju is way too good of a receiver for that. But if he does step up, and I think there's a chance he breaks out a little bit, if he does step up, I think that only helps Juju. So I am all in. We are all in, relatively speaking, at least to the consensus. So as much as I'm not drafting Cooper at ADP, I'm drafting Juju at ADP. Gimme.
I figure that you guys would be super, super proud of me to see him in my redraft rankings at 12.
Yes.
I like it.
Like, I've been low on him all off season, and here I am ascending slightly. I'm lower than the both of you, but he is at 12 for me. Juju is incredibly talented. I do think that the Antonio Brown being opposite to him narrative does have some validity. I am kind of in that camp a little bit, but when you start trying to delineate between all the factors that created his trash year last year, Antonio Brown leaves, Big Ben gets hurt, terrible quarterback play, he's got his own injuries. There's so many factors there to sift through. It's tough to kind of separate them out in terms of what's really going on. But the more I look back at who he was 2 seasons ago, and thinking about the fact that he's still so young, he still has so much opportunity to grow and increase. I think that everything's lining up better for him this year. I feel better as a fringe wide receiver 1 than these two guys do. But I do think that Juju is an incredibly talented wide receiver. His ADP is definitely low, making him a really good value. I've got that right in front of me in approximately 30 seconds. Juju is currently going. Where is he going right now?
I've seen him in like
seconds.
I have to scroll.
I see him in
wide receiver 13.
Yeah.
Yep.
5th round sometimes.
Wide receiver 13, behind Adam Thielen, right ahead of Cooper Kupp is where I'm seeing him right now. I feel like he's got the higher ceiling of both of those guys. I like him as a fringe wide receiver 1.
Yeah. Okada, if we just keep this up, man, we can get John to move up to 11 and then 10. We can do this.
Well,
okay?
the main problem is we're going to get the rest of the industry to do it too. So
that's right. And this is why I like doing best ball
Right.
drafts. Like if you're trying to just, I mean, no one's trying to like make a ton of money doing these drafts, but if you're like, all right, I'm going to get a little bit of cash in my pocket, now's the time to do it. The community is sleeping on Juju and guys like DJ Moore, like we talked about. I mean, the value is insane. So the hype is not built up too much yet. And I think it's going to change once more people start listening to podcasts, etc., over the month of July. So get in there now. All right, boys, on to...
Is this the lowest that Juju? Is this the lowest Juju has ever been and probably will be for the next 5 years?
not has ever, because he didn't have his massive season 2 year 2, but will be for the next probably 6 years. I would say yes.
Agreed. Number 11, Kenny Galladay. Now, this is going to warrant a little bit of discussion because Okada is hyped about Mr. Kenny G at 7. I have him at 12, so he's still wide receiver 1. And then John said, "Get out of here, Kenny G. You are number 16 in my ranks." So, fellas, what's the deal here? I'm in the middle, so I'll let you two duke it out.
All right. I mean, I'll kick it off. First of all, you guys know about my Matthew Stafford love, right? He was amazing last year when healthy. Kenny Galladay finished the season with the most touchdowns in the NFL. I don't know if anybody remembers this. Led all receivers in touchdowns. Half of that season, he was playing with less than doo-doo butter. I don't yet have a phrase for whatever their quarterback play was when Stafford was out.
You're going to have to.
Yeah, it was like doo-doo. Like, at least doo-doo butter is still butter. You know, you can spread it on bread. Doo-doo. It's just, get it out of here. Here's what he was doing with Stafford. All right? His 8-game pace with Stafford playing at the beginning of the season was 70 catches, 1,280 yards, 14 touchdowns, 247 half PPR fantasy points. That would have been the wide receiver 2 last season. Stafford doesn't get hurt, and Galladay's on track to be the wide receiver 2. He is very good. That was his 3rd year. Earlier, John brought up this new ascension group of young guys, the Godwins, the potentially DJ Moores. For me, Kenny Galladay is more than cemented in that group. Yeah. I think he has just as much ability and upside as either of those guys, and could be the guy that we look at like the Devontae Adams of the Lions, maybe the Devontae Adams of the NFC North once Devontae Adams is gone in 2 years, or just right now, because he would have been ahead of Devontae Adams last year if Matthew Stafford didn't get hurt. So I am all in on him. I have him at 7, in case Betz didn't mention that, which is high, yes, but I don't think it's unusually high at all. Like, it would not surprise me if he was a top 5 receiver. It would be within the realm of possibility for him to be a top 3 receiver. Yes, please.
Okada, you might have talked me into moving about my ranks.
Do it!
I'm just saying. I might do it.
Do it.
I've got him at 12 just because I get the upside. I think the pace sustainability of that, what we saw last year, might not be his true normal. So I'm just kind of bringing him down a little bit. But do I want Kenny Golladay on my roster? Yes, definitely I want Kenny Golladay on my roster. He's a very good wide receiver. He is up and coming. He's still ascending. And obviously we're all in on Matthew Stafford as a bounce back this year. So, yeah, I might move him up to like 11 or 10. We'll see.
All right.
All right, man.
You locked, John.
He'll be back in a minute. Let's finish up here at the last wide receiver in the consensus ranks. This is Mr. Mike Evans. Now, we were talking pre-show, and I said, Mike Evans is too low in my ranks. Like, I have to move him up. And I first had him down at like 19 or something. And Okada said, do you realize that? And I said, that's not right. So I moved him up to 14. Okada's at 12. John's at 9. Guys, we talked about this offense already. We talked about the different roles that the two players have in Godwin and Mike Evans. There's more risk with Mike Evans, no doubt. But all the dude does is catch 1,000-yard seasons. And, oh, by the way, he's also a touchdown monster. Now, with this offense, you guys think Gronk could potentially take away from Mike Evans in the touchdown department?
Take away? I don't think so necessarily. I feel like, first of all, they've gotten decent tight end touchdown production out of Cameron Brate and O.J. Howard in recent years. So It's not like, they're going from the Cardinals tight end situation to Gronk. And as we've mentioned before, Gronk is not what he was. So Gronk's not a 10 touchdown guy. Is Gronk going to maybe get 6, 7 or so? Yes. Is that going to really blow what Cameron Brate ever did out of the water? Not really. I'm not too concerned about Mike Evans from that standpoint. Honestly, if anything, I'm more concerned, and I have him at 12, so the concern is very low. Just a little bit more concerned about the fact that I think Godwin is a little bit more fitting of a receiver for Tom Brady. And Evans, I think, capitalized off of a very good fit in Jameis Winston to what he did, which is, hey, Jameis, just throw the ball up, man. It's either going to get picked or I'm going to come down with it. But if I come down with it, it's going to be good. And Jameis was like, all right, bro. And that turned Jameis Winston into what he was. So I like him a lot. I think he's solid. I do have to ask John, because Mike Evans is highest for John among the three of us at 9. Chris Godwin, highest among the three of us, is John at 4. What is your Tom Brady ranking is what I'm curious about.
That better be QB1.
Right. I'm bummed that my headphones cut out during the Kenny Golladay segment because I wanted to chime in there. So sorry about that. But yeah, the more I look at it, the more I think about it, the more I see what Tom Brady did with absolute garbage in New England last season. And then I'm surrounding him with these playmakers in Tampa Bay with a Bruce Arians system. Tom Brady looks a hell of a lot like a quarterback one to me for fantasy football in 2020. I don't have that ranking solidified yet. It might be spicy, but I'm starting to think that he has like QB 8-ish ability for fantasy football for 2020. I could see that happening. So I don't think that he's going to be too far off the pace that we saw from, Jameis Winston, Matthew Stafford, those guys last year, just without the picks. Like, it's going to be less, because Jameis was just YOLOing the ball all over the yard on every single throw. It's not going to be the same thing, but I think that Tom Brady's going to have the highest touchdown total that he's had in a long time because of the playmakers that he has at his disposal this year. I don't know. If you told me that he gets 27 touchdowns and throws, 6 to 8 picks, I'd totally buy that. So I think that he's going to be very serviceable. I think that a lot of people are starting to write him off. I wrote him off early when I heard the news of him going to Tampa Bay. The more I kind of look at things and the more clear of a picture I get of that offense, the more I think that he is set up and this offense is set up for a lot of success. And I think there's going to be enough to go around for both Godwin and for Evans.
Both top 9.
Yeah, spicy.
Crispy.
I get it. It does. Crispy. It does happen from time to time. It would be very interesting to see the same wide receivers repeat the feat with a different quarterback in back-to-back seasons.
Definitely.
That would be really very interesting. But
If there's a duo that's going to
do
do it, it's these guys.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it's there. I think it's possible.
Yeah, Mike Evans, unreal, man. In the first 6 seasons, the 7th most
So
most
consistent.
receiving yards ever, all time. Like
Ever.
he's probably the elite
Ever.
of Marvin Jones and being underrated. No one likes Mike Evans. In Dynasty, especially, you can get Mike Evans for cheap. Yeah. So obviously, that is not the case for us because we have him at 12. Guys, good show. Those are the top 12. We're going to be back next episode. That is on Wednesday. That is July, which, holy crap, with our brand new rankings episode. Wide receivers 13 to 24. If you like what you're hearing, listeners, please drop us a rating and a review in your podcast app. Helps us out a lot. Check out Patreon for more content. We have a lot of things coming soon. We also have a lot of things in the works in general for 2020 for our podcast. So stay tuned. Big things are happening with Red Shirts Fantasy Football Podcast. We're back next time. And until then, wear the Red Shirts.